And welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. New Jersey families are struggling with high child care costs. And critics say the fiscal year 2027 New Jersey state budget really missed a key opportunity to help. Standing by is Yarrow Willman-Cole, Workplace Justice Program Director at New Jersey Citizen Action. And she's going to talk about how the Child Care Assistance Program is a critical support for low-income families. First, for more than 50 years, Rider University has proudly hosted American Legion Jersey Boys State, one of the nation's premier civic education programs that shapes New Jersey's next generation of leaders. Now, Rider is taking it a step further. Delegates who complete the program can earn 3 transferable college credits through a new companion course on New Jersey politics and government. Joining us to explain this exciting opportunity is Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Micah, thank you for being with us. Good to see you.
You too, Laura. Thank you.
All right, so for people who may not know Rider, they have hosted Boys State for more than 50 years. So can you talk a little bit about not just the partnership, but what this program is and how it is so powerful when it comes to leadership and citizenship for high school students?
I'm glad you asked. Most people do have an impression of Boys State, even if they don't remember it or don't know how to place it. And that is, there's a very famous photo of former President Clinton as a high school student meeting former President Kennedy, and that was at Boys State. Boys State is something that the American Legion has sponsored and has put together for close to 100 years. And they do them in every state. They do a Boys Nation. And so it's a tremendous learning program about how government works. You immerse the students in a simulation of government. They choose the charter to organize their town government. They elect mayor. They elect town leaders. They form a county government. It is an imaginary simulation of every level of government. So students are getting exposure to campaigns. They're getting exposure to government. They're getting exposure to the types of government. They hear from the state's top leaders, come and address them over the course of the week that they're here. They're receiving 75 hours of instruction while they are here on campus during their week on campus, whether it is public officials speaking to them, whether it is the simulation that they're doing, the small group activities. They're organized into their cities on campus throughout. They sleep together. They dorm together, and they have activities together over the course of their week. And so we recognized a long time ago that this was something that was college level lessons. Governor Christie actually signed a law while he was in office that said that students should be able to earn credits. They weren't being recognized at many colleges and universities. So we worked with Boys State. We put together a program where we would grant the credit. Rider would grant the credits, and then you could apply those credits anywhere. If you come to school here at Rider, you can use the credits here, but we also have students go to schools throughout the country and beyond. We have helped over 1,800 students transfer these credits around the country, and we've done it very successfully. Again, it's very similar to any course that you would take on state and local politics, state and local government taught on any campus. But of course, ours has a New Jersey focus because we're learning here in New Jersey, which is a great, great system to learn from.
Well, and this is the thing. You learn about this in a classroom, but there is nothing like being able to immerse yourself and actually see how the process goes. All right, so that immersiveness. And it's a competitive program. So can you talk about, as somebody who's at Rider, watched it, looks at the students going through, like, do you see light bulbs going off, or are these kids already do they already know? Like, can you just talk about the evolution of what happens to these young men over the course of the week when they're coming in with they're learning how to live in a dorm, they're learning how to go get food on their own, and then literally seeing how government sets up. And while they may not necessarily pursue a life of public service, but man, the lessons you learn applicable to so many other areas.
I'm glad you raised that. First of all, one thing I should mention is that American Legion also has a program called Girl State,
Hmm.
and so it is something that is available to all students. They are figuring out in a co-ed world
Hmm.
how the program should move forward, but it does not leave women out. I think that's an important point to make. You make a really good point. These are some of the most motivated, brightest, next generation of students that New Jersey has to offer. We have students from all across the state. There is a real energy level and enthusiasm level. They are chomping at the bit when they arrive every Father's Day morning with their parents, and then they get left off. And really, when they leave a week later, you can see the experience that is under their belt. They have had their first experience of living away from home. They have had their first experience with public officials at this level of government. Cory Booker, longtime, he was a statesman. We have had a lot of enormous examples of the alumni who have come through this program, who have learned from this program, who graduated from this program, who come back and teach the next generation. So our students learn from that. They get exposure to that, and by the time they leave, they have that energy, that raw energy that they had before, is now transformed and channeled into a way that if you're going into public affairs, if you're going into government, you've got a lot better sense of how that works. But if you're not, there are a lot of kids who are going into STEM. They may be going into the service academies. They may be going into the military. Even if not, you have a lifelong role as a citizen, and you are more engaged now. You have more knowledge now. We want you to have a sense of, one of the things I do is, you've got to go home, and the one part of it that you can't do here on campus is you write a paper where you digest all of what you learned during your week and your role now as a lifelong citizen, whether you're going into government service or not. How do you approach this role as a more informed citizen, as somebody who knows how the system works? How can you take this over the course of a lifetime and apply it to your role as a citizen?
Well, and that's the domino effect that it has. When you go to college, get a job, when you have children, understanding how government works makes you so much more successful in other areas. Here's what I can expect. Here's why certain things take a longer amount of time. Like, people are very quick to criticize government, but they always don't understand how things work. And right, we want to hold our elected leaders accountable, but there are certain the wheels of how things work in government. They're complicated, and it takes a lot of compromise and willingness to work together. And once you understand that, I think you just become so much more effective, no matter what career you choose, no matter what it is you're doing, whether you're advocating for family members yourself, if you're building a home, you understand how to be more effective.
I totally agree with you. Every day in my job at Ryder, I am trying to broaden the work of the Rebovich Institute, not just to political science students, but to say to business students, you're going to be working for a company someday that's going to be regulated by the government. If you are in the education school and you're going to be a teacher, you are going to be certified by the government. Your paycheck is going to come from the government. If you are a STEM student in the school of in the sciences, your research may be funded by the government. And so government is going to touch all of our lives, certainly through our taxes, whether we like it or not. If we choose not to be engaged, if we choose not to know what's going on, then we are ceding all the control and all the influence over those who do. So it's really important. Government is affecting our lives, whether we pay attention to it or not.
That's it. And that's what I love about being a political reporter. You don't realize from where you park your car to, so many things in life. It is a result of a lot of local politics at the local level. I'm curious, as far as the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics, obviously they're very deeply involved. So can you talk about how this initiative, it's connected Boise State alum to ongoing opportunities at Ryder, whether it be internships, events with public officials, continued engagement in state politics? Can you just talk a little bit about that role with the Rebovich Institute and yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. You know, the debate that we worked on last year, the biggest debate in state history, the gubernatorial debate between Jack Ciattarelli and Mike Sherrill, was one in which over 1,600 people came to the gym and watched that debate in person. A number of those people were Boy State
Hmm.
alum, people who
Wow.
had been through the program. We have that lifelong connection now. We certainly welcome them back when we have speakers. I help if you look me up and you say I've got it, I want to do an internship and I need to figure out how to make a connection to that person, I am I'm on top of that. So you know, Ryder's a small school and we have a small footprint. We have a lot of success with people who go on to government service out of the Rebovich Institute. Really, really fortunate for the footprint that we have. But we also recognize that a big part of our work is educating the public and educating the wider community, and that's why we focus on the debates that we do, and that's why we focus on the larger outreach to the larger community. And so we're really lucky to have Boy State to work with a program with a larger footprint, and it's one of the ways that we reach that broader audience. And you know, it's sort of tangential. They're not students I teach for 4 years. I
Yeah.
may only have them for a week, but
Yeah.
it's enough to have a lifelong connection.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, it is one of those things that when you come across in life, it can be a short period of time, but have a profound lifelong effect. That immersion and actually doing it. And all right, well, let's set up this government. Let's elect things. And then to top it off, now you're able to get college credit. That really seems like a game changer. So if there are parents, students, they're considering Boy State, they're interested in it. What advice? What do they need to know about? Not only getting in to this program or applying to the program, but making the most of the program, and then as a bonus, getting some college credits. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It's called a dual enrollment program. And dual enrollment, you're seeing more and more of these, whether it's through advanced placement or whether it's through CLEP testing or other programs. There are more and more programs where you can earn college credit while you are still a high school student. And so it's rigorous. The department here would not approve the course if they were not convinced that students were getting an enormous amount of instruction in their short time. You can say to your one of the questions people say to themselves, how can they learn in a week what you would learn in a semester? And the reason is we've got them around the clock and
Yeah.
they are receiving over 75 hours instruction. You know, if you're in the classroom over the course of a semester, you might be only be receiving 45 hours or 40 hours worth of instruction over the course of 15 weeks. And so that's one thing to understand. Another thing we hear a lot is, do they transfer? And the answer is, we've had enormous success getting those credits transferred to almost every institution. There are a couple of exceptions. The service academies don't really allow any credits to be transferred. So if that's somewhere where you think you're headed, that may be of limited usefulness. But it's certainly something that as you apply to college and universities, to say that you were in this program and you earn college credits is of value. And so there's that as well. I will say that one of the questions we get a lot is, what credits will it satisfy? So obviously, if you're a political science student, it's going to satisfy part of your requirements for your major. But even if you're not, it satisfies a social science or a humanities or an elective credit. And so any of those slots that you've got to fill while you're a student, no matter what your major is, it's going to be useful to you. And the more credits you earn, you can graduate from college quicker if that's what you want to do. But even if you don't want to do that, it frees you up to pursue other things in your major, in your minor, so that you have the ability to cover more ground while you're in college because you've satisfied this requirement before you ever got there.
Well, Micah, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and for sharing your insight into something that is really truly unique. Boys State, and just so the viewers know, they offer Girls State not at Rider University, but there are Girls State
Right.
available as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Countless families in New Jersey say they are struggling to afford childcare. Critics say the fiscal year 2027 state budget here in New Jersey missed a critical chance to fix it. Despite promises to support working families, the Child Care Assistance Program remains on shaky ground with no long-term guarantees. Joining me now is Yarrow Willman-Cole, Workplace Justice Program Director at New Jersey Citizen Action, and a leader with Childcare for All New Jersey. Yarrow, thank you for joining us. It's so nice to see you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about Governor Sherrill and the legislature. They included $18 million for the Child Care Assistance Program, CCAP, in the new budget. But you don't think that this is nearly enough to prevent another shutdown like we saw last year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course, the 18 million is a great step forward. We saw the Child Care Assistance Program frozen for actually 9 months. It just reopened this past spring. So really, it's already destabilized childcare and the infrastructure that supports families being able to access quality, affordable childcare, and also childcare providers and what they are being paid. That was already on very shaky ground, and then the freezing of the CCAP program really put things into even more precarious situation. And so we know that the 18 million will help keep the program open and running, but for how long? And we know also it's not meeting the true demand. The program currently provides assistance for families that are eligible at 200% of the federal poverty level. We know there's about 156,000 children that are in households that would qualify at that level. So that actually is more than the seats available, even with the current 18 million investment. So there is a higher demand for this assistance than the program is ready to meet.
Yeah, so the budget is leaving CCAP operating, so it's under the discretion of the Department of Human Services. So you're saying there's not a structural protection. So can you talk about that uncertainty, what it means for low-income parents who really rely on this program so they can go to work?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing that people need to understand is it's not only about investing in childcare for these families, for these children, it's also for our overall economy, so that people can be part of the workforce, so that employers can count on parents being able to come to work, right? So we do need to see these investments being made not only for the individual families who are hardest hit when these programs are frozen. We don't even know exactly how many families were impacted yet by the closure, but we do know it has definitely forced families and workers to drop out of the workforce when they couldn't rely on the ability to pay for childcare. So we need to see more investment, for the individuals and the families, as well as the childcare provider centers that rely on the CCAP funding to also make ends meet and continue to pay their staff, and also family childcare workers. So these are the in-home providers that rely heavily on the CCAP subsidy assistance for them to be able to also continue to provide their services to families.
When you don't have consistency, something that you can rely upon as somebody who's trying to go out into the workforce, I mean, that just has such a domino effect, with your workplace, with your customers, whatever it is, work that you're doing. And you have noted that this type of instability hits women of color hardest, both as and also as underpaid childcare workers themselves and as parents. So can you just talk a little bit about that and how, what's happening with the state budget affects these moms, specifically with the broader workforce?
Yeah, the majority of the care workforce is made up of women of color, immigrant women, and they are largely underpaid. They are not receiving benefits or retirement. The family child care providers don't really have the ability to take any paid time off. They're essentially contractors, so they have overhead costs, which mean that they're sometimes making as little as $5.50 an hour after covering the overhead costs. So they are greatly impacted. The fact that these families that come to them for their childcare are unable to continue to do that when they're not able to access the subsidy, means they're looking for how to keep their business open, because it is a business for these family childcare providers. And we need this budget to really look at not only keeping the CCAP program afloat and open, but also investing in the program so that they can better compensate providers so they can receive higher rates of pay, so this labor force isn't so destabilized. And in addition, we need to see the program for the subsidies expanded so it's really meeting the need, because childcare is so expensive. It's a key issue when we think about families' affordability. The number that often we look at is 7% of your income should be the most that you're paying in childcare. But what we actually see is around 19%, in some cases even 30% of families' income in New Jersey is going to paying childcare, and in particular infant care, which is very high cost.
Well, yeah.
So it's way too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, childcare for an infant, that can cost more than $20,000. Many people have more than one child. So you have a couple of children, and that is eating up so much of a family's monthly budget. So can you talk a little bit about how that compares to what the federal government considers as affordable, and what this real life impact is here on New Jersey families?
Yeah, so the 7% is what's considered affordable, and the federal government also supports states providing these subsidies at a higher amount than what New Jersey is actually currently offering. So we're only at the 200% of the federal poverty level. That subsidy is quite low, especially compared to other states as well. The federal government allows us to receive compensation and for that program up to the 85% of the state median income. So what we're doing is actually closer to 40% with the current 200% eligibility criteria for the program. It's kind of confusing, all the numbers. The point is we're not really fully taking advantage of the assistance that we could be receiving at the federal level to be able to support lower income families who are completely struggling to make ends meet. I mean, the cost of childcare, as you say, is more than a mortgage.
Yeah, and this is it is overwhelming. It's complicated for people who understand what they're doing. You have a mom who, as a young child, is just trying to make ends meet, put food on the table. This is incredibly complex to try and navigate. Are there specific steps that you want the governor, legislature to take now to make this easier, more affordable, to expand child care subsidies, and also raise wages for those who are working? Otherwise, it doesn't pay to put your child in daycare or preschool. It doesn't pay. You end up losing money, and then you're not working, and then you're relying more and more on the system.
Yeah, it's not worth it at a certain point. You do see women bear the brunt of having to make these choices and look at dropping out of the workforce, which affects not only the household's economic stability, but the worker, the woman, right? And their long-term earnings, what they're able to actually earn in retirement, and so this has a long-term impact. But to your point, I think we were hopeful that the budget would go beyond the 18 million. We were advocating for further investment. So we're going to continue to talk about how we need to see childcare as a public good, and it needs public investment. And that means we do need to raise revenue. We need to look at tax equity in terms of how we're raising that investment. And the thing that we would like the legislature to also look at is raising the qualification for the child care assistance to 300% of the federal poverty level. Really it's about making sure that our budget meets the needs of working folks that are really struggling with the high cost of childcare, as well as looking at how we can have our providers better compensated, receiving other benefits and support so that we can stabilize the childcare infrastructure, the childcare system. And so we are going to continue to make those points, and why our legislature and the governor, in the next budget session, will hopefully go further and prioritize childcare for all in New Jersey.
So, in childcare for all, calls this, it is essential. It is an essential infrastructure. So final thoughts here. What would, in a perfect world, a stable, equitable, and fully funded childcare system in New Jersey look like? And why is managing it crisis to crisis just no longer acceptable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we know that the Department of Human Services, which administers the budget for the child care assistance, falls within their jurisdiction. They need to look at also how families are coming to apply and some of the barriers that are there, and understanding how to actually receive the assistance. And then they need to go beyond and expand the program. We actually think that it's just a narrative conversation around how we think about childcare, instead of it being like only on the individual families to figure out how we can solve it collectively, so that we see childcare as really, again, this like public good, public infrastructure that we all essentially need to rely on when it comes to making sure that our economy is running well, and that we have also, our children, it's really early education, right? The fact that they are able to be in a childcare that is affordable, and that they're receiving good education as well, is going to help our future workers, right? Our children are the future. So we do need to invest in childcare with the view of the children and how they're going to be able to advance.
All right, Yarrow Willman-Cole, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.